Thank you, Lori. I'm Rob Olson, and I'm the last panelist on the last day in the last workshop of SSP 2020. We're here to talk about user experience design, and I'm going to bring you a case study from Procter & Gamble. A little bit about me. Right now, I'm an adjunct professor at Penn State and enjoying teaching rigorous human-centered design to engineering students. In terms of my P&G experience, I'm a retired principal scientist. I had the privilege of leading the products research community to practice for 6 years. Created our behavioral science for innovation program, where we pivoted from traditional market research metrics and measures to behavioral experiments as the best way to guide innovation programs. Created our University Accelerated Innovation Program, where we partnered with the universities around the world who were focused on rigorous human-centered design in a cross-discipline way. And finally, created our Biometrics Institute, where we explored the possibility of predicting consumer response from biometric, that is, nonverbal behaviors. So how did experience design get started at P&G? Back in 1998, we had a mastery symposium. We'd been hearing about experience design. We'd been thinking that we were too restrictive when we focused just on the product, and that we needed to broaden that perspective to one that was inclusive of the product and the user simultaneously. And we called that creating consumer experiences. Our model back then wasn't too bad. We said the experience was composed of a context, the emotional reactions, the cognitive reactions, and of course, the sensory experience associated with using the product. Jumping ahead to the mid-2000s, we took that deep dive into biometrics, as I mentioned. And then, as I was wrapping up my career, I spent time at universities and became intimately familiar with the way rigorous human-centered design was thought of on the outside. And that included design thinking, lean startup. And if you combine those two things with behavioral science and some of the best of what P&G did, I thought you had a pretty powerful construct. And I kind of summarized that in this lean design thinking framework. So let's get started on the case study. The project was called Locust, and as you can see, it was focused on laundry packaging. We'll look at the Locust case study through 6 lenses: metaphorical, behavioral, something we call standards of excellence and standards of crap, journey maps and touch points, the mechanisms by which tensions or aspirations are delivered, and of course the metrics. How do we measure progress? And these icons will appear throughout the case study to clue you in when we're talking about one or more of these aspects. Locust was a global program, and we had a lot of fun doing the global research. But let's talk about the protocol by which we did this research. It started with some homework for consumers, and we used 2 techniques: metaphorical storytelling and something we called photo scavenger hunt. In metaphorical storytelling, the panelist is describing their current experience and their desired experience with imagery, not words. Then in photo scavenger hunt, we have them take pictures of exemplary products and take a picture of a package you love, one you hate, one that's messy, one that's clean, one that's comfortable. Then when we arrived in home, we'd start debriefing that homework, starting with the metaphorical storytelling. And of course, the current experience was chock full of tensions or pain points that we needed to resolve to deliver a superior user experience. And the right side was chock full of aspirations that if we could deliver those, or at least move them towards those, it would also provide a delightful user experience. Then we talked about the photo scavenger hunt and had the panelists take us to the product they had photographed and explain why, what it was about that that made it a package they loved or a package they hated. And by doing that in context, we got tons of insight. Then we did task observation, so a bit of ethnography, had them do a load of laundry the way they normally would, and we just observed, didn't interrupt that, saved our questions for after the process was done. And finally, we stimulated them with prototypes and had them use them, then rank them, then rate them, and discuss why those rankings and ratings were provided. Of course, analysis and synthesis were critical, and we did a very robust process by which we broke each interview into its component parts, compiled those component parts back to back as video playlists or as rating and ranking data, and then did a cross-panelist by task analysis. So here's a metaphorical look. We did a little metaphorical exercise with panelists, and we said, if your package was a famous person, who would it be? And if you could have anything, who would it be? Who would you like it to be? And these are pretty amazing how these turned out. So in North America, we see this slob, couch potato person to George Clooney. Pretty big difference between what the package is like today and what they'd like it to be like. What about George? Well, on the one side, the couch potato is messy, inconsiderate. You have to clean up after and you're embarrassed about him. All right. What about George? He's not only attractive, but there was a lot of feedback about him being a kind of down-to-earth person. He could come to your house and you could be okay showing him around. Okay. And you'd certainly be proud to be seen with him. A package people are proud to be seen with. Sounds like a new job to be done. All right. In China, we saw a bit of the same kind of thing, and in France. And of course, the celebrities changed according to the culture. Obviously, a lot of work to do on packaging to get from this messy, embarrassing package to stylish substance. All right, well, what did we learn when we did the actual ethnography? These are great. These are some videos that explain the key tensions we discovered plus one aspiration. So let me go ahead and play one of these. Do you have any packages that you've got them here, but they just frustrate the heck out of you?
I have one right there, actually. I filled this up with what I had purchased in this last night. See how this reservoir is?
Yeah.
When you tip it up to get all the, the stuff out of it, to put in my likable container, if you will, you always have stuff in there that you can't get out. So I have that fish knife right there, and I'll just take it and I'll cut all the way around in here. But as you see this lip here, stuff will get lodged up in there too that you can't get out at all. You just shake and shake and shake, and you just get tired of shaking it, and end up, just throwing out the product, what's left of it, which usually is a whole lot, but still.
And will you cut that one out when it gets?
Yes, I actually filled it with water. Loosen it up. Then I can use the last of it, and then I'll cut it out. Well, last of what I can get out of it, and then I'll cut the ends of it.
Okay.
And this
the very fish knife that you talked about right here, right?
Yeah, I think that's what they call it. Yeah, it looks like a fish cutting knife.
Yeah.
You can see it's got plastic and stuff on it where I used to cut out my bottles.
All right, so what do we conclude? Our packages are great so long as we include a fish knife with every package so that you can cut the top out and get the darn product out that you paid for. All right, I'm not going to go through all of these, but I can't resist playing one more because, again, this is just so illustrative of current experience, desired experience.
Yeah. Yeah, free and clear. And the bottle is, can you see the whiter sections here? This is where it's stripped down. That was my other complaint. That when I put the lid back on, it...
all that. Oh, yeah.
So now, having grabbed it and handled it, it's made my hands stick. But if I just grab it over here, I should be okay.
Okay. So, again, great product, great package, going to sell it with the fish cutting knife, and it's a cleaning product that makes a mess. But otherwise, it's great. In this one, this interview in China was just fabulous, where the package said, please dose 1/9 of a capful if you're going to hand wash in an opaque cap with no dosing lines. Not that great of an idea. All right. Space constraints. This is a Parisian apartment where people were trying to store, figure out where to keep their laundry detergent jammed in there next to that little tiny combination washer dryer. And then this diagram here, it shows that wrist angle for dispensing, according to our ergonomics analysis, that wrist angle is actually in the discomfort to pain range. So, great package that hurts to use, is messy, you have to cut it open to get it all out, and you can't dose it right, but otherwise it's great. All right. What else did we learn? Well, we came up with an aspirational thing, worthy of display. A package so attractive that I'm happy to have it in view of my friends or family. And so in this particular interview, one of the things that came out was a liquor bottle. There are also perfume bottles that were exemplified, this kind of packaging that was so beautiful that people actually used it for display purposes. And here again in this Chinese apartment, we can see the basic context, and then a picture of a Remy St. Martin cognac bottle, which she had on display right up here. Okay. And so it's really, really interesting. And we go, wow, an empty package used as a display piece. Could we aspire to that? Of course, the standard of crap on that was current bottles, and I hide it away like shown in that Parisian apartment. So how did this all sum up? Well, we created a tensions and aspirations table. We said, what is the general improvement area? What's the specific tension? And most importantly, what would have to be true from a consumer standpoint for the tension to be resolved? And so, for example, simplification is the general area, so many steps, so many little frustrations, so little time. What resolves that? Well, examples of one-handed, one-step packaging were constantly shown as standards of excellence, okay? Right for me, dosage, here you see that issue with dosage. I know how much should be dosed. It's up to me. However, you don't enable me to do the dosing like I want, okay? Handling, mess, get it all out. We've explained that. Then some more aspirational things. The pack does a fine job of holding liquid. Not such a great job of dispensing it, but at least does a fine job of holding it, but doesn't help me accomplish what I'm trying to accomplish with laundry, which is better laundry outcomes, okay? And then laundry is a joyless task. Wouldn't it be great if we could have some moments of pleasure or some fun? So this guided the entire design work from that point forward. Now, which of these tensions to resolve? Let's just say the more you resolve, the better the user experience. And we chose to take them all on. Could we design our way to a package that resolved them all? Okay. Let's talk about how to represent the total journey, because it's a great way to make sure you're taking a holistic look at the current experience, and then it's a great way to show the way you've improved that experience through different concrete changes in the journey. All right. So we mapped the journey kind of like this, from initially shopping for the detergent to getting it home and storing it. You know, you're going to do your laundry, you pick up the package. Is there enough left? Oops. Gosh, it didn't give me any feedback on the fact that I was almost out. Dang it, now I got to go to the store. Okay. Then you do your dispensing. When you're finally done with all the detergent in the package, it reaches its end of life. Here we give that issue of getting the last bit out. And then here are the more detailed steps that each of those major steps broke down into. Shopping, we had many steps there. Dispensing, we had many steps and many tensions there. So we covered that in some detail, okay? getting that last bit out, tip it upside down, rinse, cut it open, other, yuck. Okay. And so what should we do about those things? Well, we should fix this and we should fix this. Okay. And even we should fix that. We should show them how much is in the package before they go to do the laundry. All right. Switching over to mechanisms, let's take one of those tensions and talk about the mechanism here. So what causes this mess, this horrible mess that's shown on this package? Well, it's the fact that this cap has threads and this bottle has threads, and those threads mesh when you screw the cap back down. But when you pour fluid out of the cap, a little bit runs into the threads on the cap. When those threads mesh, it's like an extruder pump. Some of that fluid goes down into the bottle. That's great. We don't care about that. We're happy. But some comes up and comes out right around here, and you have that mess. So it's a design that is guaranteed to produce a messy, leaky bottle when those threads mesh and there's fluid on those threads. How do we get out of all that? All right, well, let's take a look at some of the approaches we took. For the mess tension, which is mechanistically caused by fluid being pumped by the threads, we had several different approaches. Eliminate the threads. Invert the package so the fluid flows out and never has to go into thread-on cap. Or another mechanism, pump it out again so you eliminate the threads meshing. And those were indeed the three vectors we chose to explore. Something called pour it, something called dock it, and something called pump it. And we did a lot of different prototypes. And here you see a bunch of different prototypes and how they stacked up, whether they were perceived as better than their current. And when we first started, we only had these three that were in any way better than the current. These we kind of could eliminate. All right. They were super simple packages. We said, hey, maybe simple is better. Turns out it's not. Okay. But it turned out that here's where our docket kind of rests. We had a couple different names for it. One was the cat bath. One was lily, just based on different shapes. But you could see on our first prototypes, the experience wasn't even better than what they have today, but we heard enough positive elements in there to say, okay, for sure we'll keep these, we'll refine these, and we'll eliminate those. All right. And that's indeed what we did. How did we measure all of this? Okay, ranking, rating, semantic differentials, and choice. What do we mean by each of those? So we started with an emotional bullseye that just went from I love it in the center to I don't like it at all. And we had panelists, after using the prototypes, take a little image that represented each prototype and place it on the bullseye. And so right here is their current package. So nice, we have some packages that are better than current, but none make it into here. How could we get in there? And then here's some things that are not as good as current, especially this one, right? So when we were first doing the prototyping, we very much focused on this emotional response. And then to actually get at the attributes that were driving the rankings and the choices, we use semantic differentials. And here I'm just talking about Charles Osgood and word-anchored scales with a zero neutral. So you see a zero neutral. They're word or phrase anchored, plus or minus 5. There was a lot of room for differentiation of the different prototypes along these attributes. And we would have them fill this out immediately after using the prototypes. So they would mark on this scale, where prototype 1 was, where prototype 2 was, and so on. And they're tightly bound time-wise to their experience of the prototype. So how did we pick our attributes? Well, going back to these tensions, all we did was, take a tension and turn it into some attribute statements. So for example, one-handed, one step, showed up right here. Cannot be used with one hand, can be used with one hand. Similar with all the right for me and emotional, not fun to use, fun to use. Worthy of display, yes, absolutely. And those all wind up being key differentiators of our product. But I also mentioned that our ultimate metric was, did people choose you over their current alternatives? So let's take a look at how we executed that in the locus case. All right, Elizabeth, place your bottle over there. Okay. Now, the moment of truth has arrived. You have arrived with a bottle that you just purchased.
Yes.
You can leave with that, or you can trade us to use for the next week or two. Okay. Any one of the prototypes you've used, plus the same amount of liquid and loads as is in that bottle. So, what do you choose?
I'm going to choose this.
All right, pull it towards you. And we're going to take that one away. And why did you choose the bucket? All right, we're not going to listen to her whole setup of why. It's really the protocol that I wanted to emphasize there. Notice she had to trade a bottle of detergent she just bought with her own money, brand new and full, for one of the prototypes. And she had to trade that in order to use the prototype for 2 weeks, 2 more weeks. And so is that the same as putting it on the market? No. But is that pretty strong evidence that she sees high value in what we created and would be willing to spend some amount of money on it? You betcha. How much money? Well, as much money as it costs to buy that current bottle of detergent, plus the time and effort it took to actually acquire it and bring it to us. Those kind of transactional learning experiences that don't involve money exchange can be included in these small base studies and are really your ultimate metric of, have you made enough progress on your user experience design? When do you know you've made enough progress? When they choose you consistently over their current options, and that you do make that choice where the choice incurs a cost. This docket prototype over the other alternatives, right? So it's the majority in each case. Very small base. These are 9 and 10 base studies, or 11 base and 10 base studies. And yet that consistent pattern gave us a lot of confidence. And so we could eliminate these other alternatives, okay, because we had this consistent pattern and this extensive body of evidence behind these choices that explained why those were the choices, okay? How did those semantic differentials turn out? Well, here you can see the semantic differential ratings for the current package, which was mostly a bottle, but sometimes a big club pack or press pack. And then here is the best alternative, the one they chose consistently, which is docket, okay? And in the handling, semantic differentials, simplification, messiness, dosage, and get it all out, there were huge differences. We might look at a 1 to 1.5 point difference as being indicator that, we're on the right track. These were 3 and 4 and sometimes 5, 6, and 7 point differences. So we'd clearly, by the time we'd revised this design through many iterations, had gotten somewhere where we had really strong delivery and resolution of the tensions in the current experience. And then there's the aspirational part. So remember, we had semantic differential scales on aspiration, worthy of display, +3 units, fun to use, over a +3, and provides moments of pleasure at a +3. Boy, introducing moments of pleasure into a mundane task like laundry, that's super, okay? The value equation was pretty good too. I could save money by using this, but +4, wow, all right. And the reason they say that is because there's no mess, there's no spilling, and they could get it all out. All right, let's take a look at our final design, and I'll just let this play automatically. It's called Tide on Tap. You can see it's the inverted design, And you can see many of these features are directly aligned with the tensions we were trying to resolve in the current user experience. Here the cap does not only an improvement in the dosage experience, so you can actually see how much you're pouring into that cap, but the pre-treat on the bottom helps you with those desired outcomes, making the laundry actually turn out better. This is how it works. Dispense, grab it, dump it in the laundry. Oh, we've used up all the fluid. How do we reload it? Lots of people were confused about this, so we show that it's a durable reload, not a refill. There's no pouring of fluid to one package to another. It's just put the new package on the spout, invert it, and you're ready to go. And then this shows a little bit about how we offered it. So there's the starter kit, has the durable components, which again dramatically reduced the packaging that went to recycle or the trash on a per bottle basis, and also included enough to get you through one reload experience so that you could get the benefit of 37 times the simplified journey plus how simple the reload was. All right. Going back to this journey map, we got rid of that. We fixed enough left, and we went from 14 steps to 3 steps in the dispensing. So that was huge. All right. I thank you for your time and attention. This was a quick tour through user experience design, a practical example at P&G. In its market test, it was called Tide on Tap. It actually did extremely well from a consumer standpoint in the market test, but we handed it off to an outside supplier, and there were some issues with the rest of the business model that never got sorted out. And now we'll take questions in a Q&A session. I want to thank you for your time and attention. Thank you to all my fellow panelists, and we'll talk to you shortly here in Q&A.